These are the notes for section 4.4, using corresponding parts of congruent triangles. Our objectives are: use the properties of CPCTC to prove corresponding parts of triangles congruent. So we always use CPCTC because we don't want to say corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent every single time. What this means is if two triangles are congruent, then every pair of corresponding parts is also congruent. We have already talked a lot about corresponding parts of congruent triangles. We did that whenever we first learned how to name congruent triangles in the section. We said that we had to match up the angle marks. So that's what we're doing here. We're matching up the angle marks, but we're doing it after the two triangles have been proven congruent. So if I want to take an example, I want to do the two examples to the right. I want you to try the two to the left. Or sorry, I'm going to do the two at the bottom. So I'm given the information that's on this picture, and I want to prove that segment EA is congruent to segment MA. So the information that I'm given is what's on this picture. So I'm given that segment ET is congruent to segment MT. Our reason, given. And I'm also given that angle ETA is congruent to angle MTA. And this is given. So whenever I look at this and I say, well, why are these triangles congruent? You should know by the reflexive property we have this. Segment TA is congruent to segment TA. So that would just be side, angle, side. That's why they're congruent. And as you'll see, we'll take one more step to prove what we aim to prove at the beginning. But before we can do that, we need to finish our SAS proof, our congruent triangle proof. So segment TA is congruent to segment TA. That's the reflexive property. So if I take a look, I have my two sides, and sorry, I have my side, my angle, and my side. So that's why it's SAS. The angle is included, it's in between the two sides. So triangle ETA is congruent to triangle MTA by SAS. And this always needs to be the last part, the last statement in my proof. Segment EA is congruent to segment MA. So E and A are the first and the third letters, M and A are the first and third letters. So my reason is corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, or CPCTC. Proofs are a little bit different than what you're used to doing. But if I look at this example to the right here, why are these triangles congruent? Well, it's pretty easy to see by the reflexive property I have the third side. So they're congruent by SSS. So let's first write that proof, and then the last reason in our proof will just be CPCTC. So to write this proof, we always start off with our given information. We're given the pictures on the, or given the lines on the graph. So segment UN is congruent to segment EN. That's given to us. We're also given that segment JU, the one with 2 marks, is congruent to segment JE. That's given. Lastly, we just marked it by ourselves. Segment JN is congruent to segment JN. That's the reflexive property. So we know by side, 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 the two triangles are congruent. triangle NUJ. Then we go 1 tick mark to 2 tick marks. It's congruent to triangle NEJ. 1 tick mark to 2 tick marks. So what I wanted to prove from the start was that angle U is congruent to angle E. U and E are both the second letter, so I can do that. Angle U is congruent to angle E. And my reason's just CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. There's a lot of different things I can show. I can show that all 6 parts, remember we have 3 sides and 3 angles, that all 6 of those corresponding parts are congruent. Again, I would like you to try these ones at the top. Start off with your given information, say why the triangles are congruent, and the last step will be CPCTC.